Hey guys, I'm Ryan from ExtremeTerrain.com and this is my review of the Mammoth 3.5-inch Extreme Duty Lift Kit with shocks. This kit will fit all 2007 to 2016 JKs, and there are two different kits available, one for a 2-door and one for a 4-door, so make sure you get the right one for your Jeep. You should be looking at this lift kit if you want a 3.5-inch suspension lift without breaking the bank. I really like this lift kit for those of you who want to run a bigger tire and stay on the street or do some mild trails off-road, or those of you looking to do some more hardcore trails down the line and are looking for a good inexpensive base. We test fit this JKU with 3 different size tires on it. The 35s, in my opinion, look great. That's what Mammoth recommends that you run with this lift kit, and you won't have any kind of rubbing issues on the road or off the road. I think it's a really nice combination. We also put a set of 37s on this JKU, and in my opinion, they look really good. Unfortunately, they're not the most functional. This Jeep is set up with factory fenders and bumpers, and in that configuration, you'll probably have some rubbing on the road with that size tire. You'll definitely have some interference if you try to go off-roading. But with some additional modifications, like some flat fender flares or some aftermarket bumpers, you could get away with running a bit of a larger tire. We also put a set of 33s on this Jeep. We knew they'd be a little too small for this much lift, but we just wanted to see what they'd look like. A coil spring lift kit is beneficial over a coil spring spacer lift kit for a couple of different reasons. These coil springs are going to be both taller and stiffer than your factory springs, which means they'll hold up additional weight from armor and winches better than those factory springs would. And when you add a coil spring spacer on top of your factory springs, you generally need to run some additional bump stop to keep those factory springs from completely compressing or going into coil bind. This Mammoth lift kit includes the coil springs and shocks, as well as everything else you need to get your Jeep lifted, all for about the cost of a coil spring spacer lift, and that's something I really like about this kit. You'll be able to run 35-inch tires, or sometimes even larger, depending on how you use your Jeep and your fender flare situation. Now, even though this kit has everything you need to get rolling, get back on the road again, depending on how you use your Jeep, there are some parts that you may want to add. If you're somebody who's lifting for looks or just running really mild trails, this lift is fine right out of the box. If you're somebody who takes your Jeep off-road and really pushes the suspension to the limit, there are a couple of parts that you'll want to add, or you can take a look at one of our more complete kits right off the bat. Components that come in this lift kit are quality. The springs are designed and built so that they're going to hold up to additional weight of armor and winches, all without sagging or losing height over time. The shocks that are included will give you a really nice ride quality. These are SkyJacker Nitro 8000 shocks, which are known to be a quality budget shock. The other parts that are included in the kit are this rear track bar bracket, one set of sway bar links, you'll get front and rear bump stops, and front and rear cam bolts. Those cam bolts are going to adjust your caster in the front and your pinion angle in the rear. The other important part that's included are rear brake line relocation brackets. Those are going to ensure that you're not going to overextend your rear brake lines when you're off-road. So that's everything that's included in this lift kit, and like I said, that's everything you need to get your Jeep lifted and back on the road all in one weekend. The nice thing about any lift kit is that they are upgradable and you can add parts as you find that you need them. For instance, if you take your Jeep off-road and you find that the cam bolts are coming out of alignment, you can always add geometry brackets or control arms. Or if you're wheeling your Jeep on the weekend and you find that you want to be able to disconnect those sway bars, you can always swap out the links for some quick disconnects. Now you can always add to or upgrade components in any lift kit, and that's part of the fun. But the reason I like starting out with a budget kit like this is you're not taking off parts that you just spent a ton of money for. Once you get the Jeep on the road or out on the trail and you're really pushing the limits of the suspension, you'll be able to upgrade or add to it to make your Jeep work exactly how you want it to. This lift kit install is just like most others on the market, and it's pretty straightforward. The first thing you'll need to do is support the Jeep from the frame and remove or disconnect everything that keeps the axle from completely drooping. Now, this kit includes shocks, so of course you'll be removing those, but you'll also need to remove or disconnect your brake line brackets, emergency brake line brackets, sway bars front and rear, track bars front and rear, even your front drive shaft. Everything that's necessary to let that axle come completely down. Once that happens, the old springs will pop right out and you'll be able to put the new ones in without the need for a spring compressor. Spring compressors can be difficult to use in tight spaces, and we all know that they can get a little bit hairy when they're under load. For as straightforward as this install is, we did run into a couple of rough patches during the process. This is a bit of an older Jeep and we had some rusty bolts, and for those of you guys who have worked on older vehicles before, you know how much time that can add to an install. It'll definitely help to have your favorite penetrating spray handy and have some heat on hand for those stubborn bolts. The other challenge that we ran into was installing the cam bolts. In order to install those bolts, there are a couple of tabs on the control arm brackets that you're supposed to be able to just punch out. Ours were a little bit more difficult and we ended up having to use a grinder to remove those tabs. This lift kit includes one set of new sway bar end links that you'll put in the rear of the Jeep. You'll then move the factory sway bar end links from the back into the front. They're a little bit longer and they'll work better with these lifted springs. This is one of those areas where you'll be able to upgrade or add to this lift kit if it fits your needs. Adding a set of quick disconnect sway bar end links will allow maximum articulation off-road. This whole install should take about 6 hours and it'll definitely help to have an extra set of hands around. Other than that, you won't need any specialty tools, just some wrenches and some sockets. If you have access to a lift and air tools, it'll definitely speed up the process, but you can get this done on the ground in your garage or in your driveway with just a jack and some jack stands. Like I said before, this is one of the more inexpensive coil spring lift kits on the site. It's actually right around the same price as some of the coil spring spacer kits. Now the SkyJacker Nitro 8000 shocks that come in this lift kit are known to be a pretty decent riding budget shock. And after driving this Jeep, I have to say, I agree. It does ride a little bit harsher than the factory shocks and the factory suspension setup, but it's by no means uncomfortable and certainly not undrivable. I would say for a lift kit in this price range, it's exactly what I would expect. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get to take this Jeep off-road, but what I know from driving it on the road and from installing the lift is it's going to work for you. On the road, on mild trails, or even moderate off-roading. The 3.5 inches of lift provides plenty of clearance for 35-inch tires, just like Mammoth recommends, so you know you're not going to have any type of rubbing or clearance or interference issues. The nice thing about starting with a budget lift kit like this is that there's tons of room to grow into it. You'll be able to add things like sway bar disconnects, longer brake lines, control arms down the line, all to increase articulation and increase your off-road performance. So that's my review of the Mammoth 3.5-inch Extreme Duty Lift Kit with shocks, fitting all 2007 to 2016 JKs that you can find right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.